Hey everybody, Nags here. So time for our next tutorial video. Um, Last time I said we were going to set up wire for our light, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to make it so that you're able to turn this on and off with a switch, and we're also going to make a switch. Okay, so first things we need to do is we need to add a frame to our light pole that tells the game that it is in the off position, that it's off. So first things we need to do is we need to open them up into our image editing, which I've already done. Um, we're going to grab this one and we're going to go document, resize canvas, and we want to add 9 to this, so that's going to be 45. And then we just need to grab our selection tool, go ahead and copy any one of these frames, hit Control C and Control V to paste it, and then just move the copy over to the blank area. And then we want this one here to be our off frame. So what we'll do is we'll grab our draw tool and we'll press Alt to pick a color. I'm going to pick the center color. I'm going to come up here and I just want to make this a darker color. So we're going to grab this one here and we're just going to draw that in there like so. And then we'll grab this color and we'll grab the darker one here. Whoops, too far. Just like that. I'm going to close that out. And now that is our off image. So we'll go ahead and we'll export this out. And we got it already in there. Light pole. Let's go into the correct space. It's save, yes to overwrite. Okay, so now there's going to be a little bit of a change here. With making this into a wireable object, we have to change the way the light interacts with it, or the way that this is a light source, and the way that animation is done. Um, we're going to actually get rid of this image. It's going to be different. Um, what we're going to do is now we're just going to take out the color for the light in these ones and just make it transparent altogether. But we're going to leave the off state alone. And now we're going to export this again. And this time we'll just put lit on the end of this and overwrite the lit image. And so this one is gone forever. We don't need it. It's garbage. Close out of that, minimize, and you'll see the two new images here. We've got our normal one and then the one where they're transparent there, but not there. Okay, next we need to come into our light pole frames because now we have 5 frames. So we need to put here that we have 5, but that's not all we need to do. We also have to come to the end of this one and hit comma and do parentheses default dot off. So this is going to be our off frame. And because of how we're going to be doing our animation now for this, we also need to make these actually start at 1 and go 2 to 4, or well, 1 to 4. So now we don't start at 0 anymore. We're going to start at 1 and count up to 4 and then have our off frame. And we're going to change the default to off instead. And that is what your light pole frames file should look like now. This all stayed the same. Well, I'm sorry, that stayed the same. This one we increased it by 1. We added a new one here, and we added 1 to each number there. And then we changed our default to the off state. Okay, next we're going to actually make a new file. So go down there and make a new text document, delete all of that, and we're going to call this lightpole.animation. Go ahead and hit yes to change the file type. Open that one up. And in here, we've got quite a bit of extra stuff to add. I'm going to code it all out. Um, if you get lost or you need to go back and watch the video again, don't feel bad. There's going to be a lot of coding here. Um, if you just can't get it, that's fine. The files will be available for download in the video description, so you can just get it there if you don't get it, and you can just read through it and see if you understand. Okay, so we're going to start off with an open bracket, press enter, and we're going to type in parentheses, animated parts, parentheses, colon, open bracket, state types. I'm not going to say the parentheses for each of these. Each one's going to be in parentheses, and they're all going to end or have a colon before they go on to the next area. Curly bracket, enter, light, oops, and then I don't do the parentheses. Light, another curly bracket. Okay, so what we're doing here is we've just said that we have multiple animated parts, and then we're going to have different state types. And first state type is going to be light, and in here we're going to have the default for the light. Oops. We're going to call the default, and we just put in our frames file that default is going to be off, and then we'll do states, do a curly bracket. So these are the different states that the light can be in. So we want to do off because that's our starting default. Curly bracket, enter, and you can just go down to the next one, put a comma on there. Next one is going to be on, curly bracket, and then in here is where we're going to actually define our actual animation for while it's on. So parentheses, frames, colon, and we're going to do 4, comma, cycle. This is going to be the same as okay, so let's open up our lightpole.object so we can kind of show you guys what we're doing here. And I'm going to full screen this, and I'll split this to the right so that we can kind of compare what's going on here. So we set our default to off, which is not set in here, so we don't have to actually, it's nothing different here. For our on state with the frames, 4, cycle is going to be the animation cycle, so colon 1.5. And then next we want mode. This is something different. We haven't called this before, but our mode is going to be loop. I'm not entirely certain what all the other modes are that you can do. Oops, and I forgot to do the colon there. Loop is just saying that it's going to constantly repeat, so it's not going to just play once or something like that. And that's how we're going to do our on animation. You can use the same kind of setup to do something for your off state. If you want to animate your off state, you can. It's going to be a little bit more tricky because you can't just put a number of frames. What this is going to do, it's going to count the first 4 frames that are numbered 1 through 4. So if I did like frames here and did like, say I added another 4 frames and the ending 4 were going to be the off animation. If I typed in 8 here, it's going to play all 1 through 8. So I believe, I'm not 100% certain, but I believe what you have to do is you do square bracket and you'll call out each one. So like it would be 5, 6, 7, and 8. I believe. I'm not 100% certain, so I mean, it'll take a little bit of messing around, but you guys can try it. If that doesn't work, you might want to try doing inside your square brackets another square bracket for each one. So then you got 5 and what have you. Again, I'm not certain how that works exactly. I haven't played with having two different sets of animations, but it lets you have a lot more control over it. So you just gotta be careful. Okay, so we're gonna come down 4 of these brackets, put a comma, and press enter. If you're not sure where we're playing off of, you can highlight this comma or put your cursor right after it, and it will put an underscore under the state types one. So we are defining another or something after state types. That's how you just know where you're going to be. So now we're doing parts. And this is, again, some more control that you can have over the animation, different things you can do. So we're going to the part I'm gonna like we're gonna call this BG for background. You can call it whatever you want. You can call this main, uh, whatever. It doesn't matter. But we're gonna call it background or BG, comma, uh, properties, another bracket, centered, false. We're done there. Put a comma on the parentheses or properties bracket. Go down. Part states. Jeez. And then we've got light bracket, and then in here we want off, another bracket, and then properties to this one. Oops, I forgot the, yeah. And then colon, another bracket. Okay, and then finally, image, and we're not going to actually define an image here. We're going to do less than symbol. I can never remember what those are. And we're going to do, oops, keep forgetting that colon there. Okay, less than part image colon color. Whoops, I forgot the less than greater than color dot off. So what that's saying is that whatever we define as the background image, this is going to look for the, in the part states, it's going to look for the off state of whatever image when we're in the off state, if that makes sense. I'll once we get all the coding done, we're going to change a lot over here. But once we get stuff done here and stuff done over here, it'll be a little bit easier for me to explain to you guys what exactly is going on. So we're going to skip this one, come down to the next one, comma, and then we're going to do basically the same thing, only for on, colon, properties, colon, bracket, and then we got same deal, image, and it's exactly the same, part, image, oops, forgot that, colon, color, and then instead of off, we're going to do another less than greater than, and in here we'll put frame because it's going to be pulling the frame number now. And then we're going to put a comma on the end of that, and we're going to call this Fulbright and true, if I could spell. And don't forget the colon. Sorry if you guys can hear my phone. It keeps going off there. Okay. And then now we want to come down 5 of these. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we should be coming off of background here, I believe is correct. Yeah, because we're closing background, so that's the one we want. Press enter, and then we're defining a new part, and this is going to be FG, or foreground, colon, curly bracket. What you guys can do here to save yourself a little bit of time is start here and highlight all the way back to properties, hit Control C, and just paste it in there, because we're going to essentially do the same code. There are a couple different things here that we want to change, or add at least. So after the centered here, we're going to put a comma, and we're going to do Z level. Z is the up and down value. Uh, Wait, that's not right, is it? I'm thinking 3D. I thought that was Y when you're doing 2D. Okay, but point is, just make it 1. If you guys want to mess with it later, go for it. It's yeah, just just do whatever. And then uh, everything else is the same except for this. We want to get rid of the Fulbright and just go back and get rid of the comma. Otherwise, that is it. So now, before I go through and thoroughly explain to you exactly how this works and what it does, we're going to come over and change our light pulled out object file. So first things first is we're going to change our image layers line here. Come all the way up to the quotation going to the image right there and delete that. And then the quotation after frame there, just hit shift end, and that'll highlight everything from that point to the end of that line, and you can delete that and then just put a comma there, and that's how you want that line to look. Image position, we can leave that alone. Frames, um, frames and animation cycle, we're going to get rid of both of those, so just highlight and delete. Space scan we'll leave at that. Anchors that, and then we're going to actually add a line. We're going to add it after image position, and in here we're going to put direction, colon, and we're going to put right. And basically what this says is that whenever we place our light pole down, it's going to be facing in the right direction. It's never going to go left or anything, depending on what side of the player we place it on. So that way it doesn't, it's, if you want to see what the difference is, then you can put a comma here and copy this whole thing like so, and then just change right to left, and then it will let you place it different orientations, basically. If you guys want to try that, go for it. You'll see what I'm talking about when I say that it's not going to look right. Okay, so then down here at the square bracket, put a comma, press enter. We're going to put a comment here, and we're going to put wire and animation, and we're going to actually get rid of animation here and change that to placement. Okay, so first line is going to be animation. This is where we're calling the file that we're using to animate, and this is lightpole.animation. Put a comma on the end of it, and then we want animation parts. Oops. Always got to remember that the second word is capitalized. Or colon, and then open curly brackets. And then here we're going to define BG and FG, foreground and background. So like in here, in our animation file, it just has part image here. We're going to define what images it's looking for when it reads that line of code. So colon, parentheses, and this the BG or background is going to be light pole dot PNG, comma, and then for FG, light pole lit dot PNG. And we're done there, and we can put a comma on this curly bracket, closing the animation parts. And then we want animation position. This is just saying where the animation is going to be happening on the image. All you really need to do here is put your colon and then square bracket 0, 0, and then put a comma. Okay, so now we're going to load our scripts for making this a wire object. So scripts, square bracket. The reason we do a square bracket is because scripts is an array, so you can actually have multiple scripts read. We're only going to read one though, and this is going to be, let's see, I believe this is a backslash. I can never remember. Objects, another backslash, wired, another backslash, light, backslash, light dot lua or lua. This is a script that's already in the game. If you open, whoops, not the correct one there. If you go in your assets, your unpacked assets, and you can follow that exact path. So objects, another way you can get this path, okay? So if you don't want to type that out, go into your assets, go into the objects folder, go to wired, and then find light. Here is that file that we were calling the script. You can come here, and then you want to just start there, go over, hit Control C, and you can just paste it in there. And then you do have to put the light.lua but it puts the wrong commas or slashes, so you have to go back and change the slashes, just so you know. Okay, so then put a comma on the end of the scripts line, and then we want script delta. I honestly have no idea what this line does. I just know that every time or every file that has a wire to it has script delta called, and it puts it at a value of 60. Every single one. If you guys want to mess with it, you can. That's up to you. Okay. Whoops. So now we're going to do interactive. What interactive means is whether or not this is going to be a switch. And it's not going to be a switch. So what we're going to do is put a colon and then put false, comma. And then what we do want is a way to connect. We have to define how this is going to be connected to. So what we do is we put input nodes, colon, square bracket, another square bracket, and then we have 0 and 0. Okay, So the way this works, this is telling the game where the little blue circle is going to be when we're placing a wire to the uh, object, and these are not in pixels; they're actually in grid squares. So the first 0 is going to be left and right, and then the second 0 is going to be up and down. I believe that's correct. Um, and it's 0, 0 is the bottom left corner. I believe it should be right. If it's not, it's going to be the bottom right corner. I know that 0 is bottom. I'm just not sure if it's left or right. It should be left. Um, our image is 3 grid squares total in height. So what we want to do is actually delete this one and make it -2. And this is going to put it at the top of our image right over the light. You can make it -1 if you want. I'm going to do 2. I believe negative is the way we want to go for it to go up. I could be mistaken. We'll see once we get in game. But that is it to make this into a wired object to where we can turn it on and off with a switch. So now I will go ahead and get in game, and I'll see you guys there once we're there. Hey guys, so I actually forgot to move our stuff into our mods folder. So delete that, delete your old instance, come back, control copy, control paste, and then now I'll see you guys in game. Alright guys, we're back in game. We've got it placed still, and as you can see, the blue square went down below. So that means -2 means down. So you want to set it to 2 to be above. So let me go ahead and exit, change that line of code, and then I'll be right back, and you guys won't see a thing. 1 second. Alright, you guys, we are back. And if we come over to wired, you'll now see that it is indeed right there over the light, just where we want it to be. Something I did just notice, however, is that it is actually defaulting to be the on state. I'm not really sure why it's doing that. It shouldn't. Yeah, not really sure. Interesting. But what we can do now is we can go ahead and place a switch down. So I've just spawned in the tiny wall switch. So let's just tiny wall switch, boop, just like that, and placed it. Come over to our wire, connect this to there, and then it defaults to off because the switch is off. And if we press E, then it turns it on. And you can see that the image there changes. Let me zoom in for you guys here. So there you have it. Pretty easy, pretty awesome. Now we're going to make a lever or a switch, just like the tiny wall switch here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get the object itself made all the way up to where it isn't wired, but it's just an object that we can place in the world. And then I will resume the video there so you guys can, because you guys already know how to make an object, so I know you don't need to see that. So we'll be right back. Alright guys, we are back. I'm trying to hurry this up because we're already at about a half hour into the video, and I don't really want to go over that, but not a whole lot I can do about that because I want to get this in. Okay, so first things first, I made the image for our switch and the icon. This is the 2 frames for it, on and off state. This is very similar to the tiny wall switch that we were just using, except for the light indicator isn't here in the corner, and instead of flipping up and down, it's going to flip left and right. And then it's a little bit different color. The icon is literally just a perfect copy of the on state with a black border around it. This is an 8x8 frame with 2 frames next to each other, and then of course icons have to be 16 by 16, but you can make it as small as you want inside of that 16 by 16 image. Okay, so let's go ahead and export both of these. Make sure we select the proper folder here. I made a new folder, called it TM Wired, switches, and then we're calling this a small switch. Select folder. So this is small switch. Save. Close out. Select this file. Export image, and this one we're just calling icon. Make sure this went to the correct area. Yep. So bam, and we're done with this. We'll just minimize it for now. Okay, so here is the object file that I made. As you can see, it's pretty much the same as we've been doing. Things to note, for the object name, I actually put TM in front of it for tutorial mod. I'm thinking I'm going to probably do that with all of the objects we make from here on out, just because in case we have conflicting object names with other stuff, then I know that ours are going to start with TM and it's not going to conflict with other mods or anything like that. Colony tags is wired, and then category is going to be wire, and otherwise it's all pretty standard. Uh, in here, instead of image, we have dual image, and there is no animation setup because we're going to be we have to do animation the same way we did it for our poll. And then over here we've got our frames file. It's just 8x8 image, 2 frames, and then we've got default on and default off. As you can see here, it is, instead of frames here, we have dot off, so it's going to default to the off frame, which, by the way, with the light pole, you could probably do the same thing for the image, put dot off, and then it will default to being off when you place it. Okay, so to make this into a wired object, we're going to hit comma, and then we're going to call our script. And this is going to be the it's going to be the, can't think of the path. The path is going to be objects wired switch switch.lua. So parentheses objects wired switch, whoops, and switch.lua, parentheses. That's the only one we're going to do. Oops, don't forget the comma there. And then script delta. And I lied earlier about that being at always 60. Oops. This is actually going to be at 5. Again, I don't know what this is. If anybody knows what this is, please let me know so that I don't sit here and keep telling you guys that I don't know what it is, just do what I do. I'd love to explain to you what it is, but I just don't know. And then animation. We're not going to make an animation file. We don't need to, because we're basing this off of every switch out there. So we just have to do the same calls as everything else and just use the one animation file that they use, which is objects. Don't forget the slash there to start with. Objects wired switch, and then switch toggle dot animation, comma, animation parts, and we put a curly bracket, and we are going to actually, oops, I'm sorry, that's not animation parts. We want animation custom. We're going to actually put sounds on this so that when you flip it, you hear it. get a little haptic feedback, Another curly bracket, and then we're going to do on, square bracket, and we're going to steal the sounds for sound effects, objects, tiny wall switch dot ogg, and then put a comma on the end of that. But now go ahead and just completely select that whole line, copy it, go to the next line, paste it, and then where it says on, just change that to off. So we've got our two different sounds there. And then come down to here, comma, and now we'll do animation parts. And this is going to be pretty much the same thing. Curly, and then we want switch, and we will call small, whoops, don't forget the parentheses, small switch. That should be it. So then come down to the curly bracket, put a comma, animation position is going to be 0. Square, 0, comma, 0, and comma. Okay, so on our light pole, we had an input node. On here, we're actually going to have an output node. So output nodes, colon, square bracket, and it's the same thing where it moves it in grid squares. This object only takes up one grid square because it's an 8x8 image. Each grid is 8x8 pixels. I don't know if I've explained that or not. So we're just going to put 0, 0, and it will appear right on it. Hit Control S, and that is it. We are done. We have created our first switch object. So I will pause here, and I'll see you guys in game. And once again, guys, I forgot to tell you that you need to make sure you delete your old instance out of your mods folder and copy your new one in. Okay, now I'll see you in game. 1 second. Alright guys, we are in game. As you can see, we've got the switches here to mess with that. Let's get rid of that one. So if we want to use ours instead of this one, we can come over here and spawn item, small, oh whoops, it's actually TM small switch because I did that. And then I can just place that guy right there and he disappeared. Huh. Hold on a second, guys. Let me figure out what is going on. I'm sure a lot of you guys caught this, but it's this right here. Switch. I should have put .ping on the end of that. Okay. Now I'll be right back in game. Alright guys, we are back and it is indeed there. So now if I flip it, you'll see it does that. Looks pretty cool. Something you guys can do if you want to, you can actually make it so your switch gives off light for whatever state it's in and the color it is. That is something you'll just have to figure out on your own. But for now, that is going to be it for this tutorial. For your guys' assignment, what I want you to do is I want you to, if you don't already, I want you to make a light based off cobalt, or if you made one for cobalt and not tin, I want you to make one based on tin. And then I want you to also make another switch. You can make it bigger, you can make it smaller, you can do whatever you want. Doesn't matter. Just do whatever you want to do. And that's what I want you guys to do. So there you go. See you guys next time. Bye.